Hello, hello. This is Romeo.
Hello. This is...
Calling from a jackpot telephone.
I have no idea what you're singing.
It's Melissa Etheridge.
Oh, really?
What kind of lesbian are you?
I don't... Clearly a bad one.
Oh, my
I don't know
goodness.
that Melissa Etheridge song.
Who did I marry? Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Wandering Works for Us. We are Sheila and Beth, a married couple living in Portugal and traveling the world. These are our stories. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. I'm Sheila.
And I'm Beth.
And we're Wandering Works for Us, and today we're going to talk about some day trips that we've taken, maybe.
Day trips in Portugal.
Day trips in Portugal, because moving to Portugal means we get to travel.
Yes.
As we always say. Feel free to share anything you want. As we sit in silence. Feel free to, back and forth, have a conversation. Any of that would be great. Are you just waiting for me to just tell everybody what's going on?
Well, you usually do, so I wasn't sure.
I'm going to drink my beer.
Okay. How about if we talk about our day trip when we went to Nazaré?
Okay.
Which is actually 2 day trips. We're going to talk about them both.
So one of the places that we have visited that's only about 30 minutes north of us, it's a nice drive, is Nazaré. And many of you may have heard of Nazaré because it is a big surfer location now because it has the largest waves in the world.
And that's because there is I can't remember how long it is, but a really big, long, deep canyon under the water.
Yes, a large canyon under the water. And when a good swell comes through, the waves, of course, are deep, and then they crash right onto the beach. And we were able to go, we've been to Nazaré twice, and there's 2 parts of Nazaré. And one of them's kind of the upper part, which is the sitio part, and then there's the lower part, which is the praia part, which is the beach. And the upper part is on a cliff, of course, and that's where you go to see the big waves at the park where the lighthouse is.
Yes.
And so that's where many people, when you see the big waves on the internet, or if you look up, Praia do Norte, that's the beach in Nazaré that has the big waves, you will see how giant they are. And they're known for the Guinness World Book of Records, most giant waves surfed.
They don't just, generally speaking, when the waves are big, because they aren't always giant, but when they are big, they actually get towed out by a ski-doo or what are those called?
A jet ski.
Jet ski.
Yeah. And they're big enough that every single time, you can't paddle out into that water. It's way too big and it's too dangerous. And so people get towed out into the waves. And the one day that we were there, that we got to see the waves, they were probably 30 to 40 feet. That's a lot to be surfing down.
So not only do they get towed into the waves, so to speak, and then they let, go and surf down the wave, but then they also get picked up by this jet ski because
you cannot paddle back out.
You can't
do that.
Well, and you can't even paddle really to shore.
No, you're going to get pummeled then too.
So they come back in, and the people who drive these jet skis are amazing. They are so talented.
And very brave.
Very. And a little bit crazy.
And a little crazy.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to Melissa Etheridge, because that song that I just sang to you earlier was from the Brave and Crazy album.
Well, there we go.
So we've just come back around.
We have. Full circle. Put us on microphones and let us talk for a while. We'll get there.
We'll get there eventually. But Nazaré is divided into 2 sections, like we said. And so the upper part is where the big waves are. And you can go up there by a funicular.
Yes.
if you happen to be on the lower part, or do what we did and just drive over there because we didn't know where we were going or what we were doing.
No.
But we were able to find parking. Luckily, I doubt you could do that during the summer, though.
No.
I don't think there's parking up there at all. But that upper part is really nice. It's got a large church up there, which we have not been into yet. What was the name of the church?
Nossa Senhora de Nazaré.
Yeah, Our Lady of the Virgin Mary. No. Nossa Senhora Nazaré Church.
And there's a great story about a king and a Virgin Mary.
Yeah, but I forgot to look that up, so I don't know what it is.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
We'll come back to that.
Or I could stop it and look it up. But it was like he was on a hunt, and he was chasing a deer, and the deer ran off the cliff, and he stopped because he saw the face of Virgin Mary, or he saw a statue or something.
Oh.
It saved his life.
Okay.
I need to look that up.
Yeah.
Anywho.
There's also
This
a
is
lot
so
of
random. All of our we're just rambling.
There's also a lot of shops and restaurants up there. It's kind of like an old town or village square up there. There's restaurants and shops surrounding it. I can't remember if there's a fountain in the middle of the square.
I don't
but,
think there was, no.
and people in the summer especially set up little places where they sell things to the tourists up there. Booths, yes, there we go. And we went, there's a California man, who moved to Nazaré, and he missed tacos. And so he opened a taco restaurant, and it's called Waves, Tacos, and Tapas.
And of course we found it.
Of course we did. And they had good Mexican food. We were more Tex-Mex, right?
Or Baja California.
Oh, yes,
kind of
Baja California. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be right. It was good. It's hard to find good Mexican food here, so we enjoyed it. And they had great margaritas.
fantastic margaritas.
And we were with our friend Sheila, who was visiting.
Hi, Sheila. And so that day, we basically just explored the beach area. You can't really go down to Praia do Norte Beach. It's not a sitting beach. Those waves are way too big.
Yes,
People go to there
You're not
just
even
to
really allowed down there, I don't think.
no, just to observe the ocean. And you can sit up on the cliffs and do that. But you can also explore the lower part, which is Praia do Nazaré, the beach of Nazaré. And that's where all the tourists go anyway during the summer. And we spent just a small amount of time down there too, but you can imagine how crowded it is during the summer. It is a beautiful beach town. That beach is lovely.
It is. It's very deep and wide. It'll hold a lot of people.
Deep and wide.
I know. I keep saying that. I said that about the canyon. I said it about the beach.
It's deep. It's
Also,
wide.
also, there is a wonderful little hut right on the beach that was open even in non-summer, and they sell ginger there.
Ginger on the beach, woohoo, which is a cherry liqueur for those of you that haven't listened to any other
Yes.
our other podcast.
We like it.
It's
and
very good.
We had met our friends Filomena and Rick.
Hi,
guys.
Filomena and Rick. We had to have a ginger before we departed ways with them, but that was a lovely day just walking up and down the main street of Nazaré. There are so many shops and restaurants, and I highly recommend when you go to Nazaré, of course, go down the main roads and see all of the shops and the restaurants through there, but also go back through the back alleys because you're going to find better restaurants that locals visit back through there.
And evidently, one end of that road is kind of against the cliff, where if you look up, you'll see the lighthouse up there, and that's the cliff that the funicular goes up. And evidently, that end of the street is older, and then it expanded out. And so you've got some really good old family restaurants back in there.
That's the best places to go eat too.
Yeah, we found one. It was very good.
Yeah. Is there anything else about Nazaré?
Well, yeah, the lighthouse. We didn't talk about how you pay €2, right, to get in?
Yeah, we should have done that before I hit the beach.
Mm-hmm. It's okay. You pay €2 to go in the lighthouse, but it's worth it, not only just for the view, but there are a couple of exhibits. or exhibit rooms. One shows you a model of the canyon that's under the water and explains to you how it makes the big waves. And that's really interesting. And then in a couple of other rooms, surfers who have surfed there, and I think probably most of them in competition is how that all happened. They have donated their surfboards or sometimes their flippers or whatever, and they're all displayed and with a little plaque about who it is and their picture and when they rode. And
yeah, and the Guinness World Book of Records, a woman that has surfed the largest wave, her surfboard is there.
yeah.
That's really cool.
So it's really interesting to see. And then when you go up on the upper level, which is where you go back outside, well, actually on the lower level, Mario, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. I've got to look it up. But I keep saying Reese, but it could be Rice.
It's probably Reyes.
Oh, Reyes. It may be.
Mario Reyes.
Most likely. Mario is a ceramicist here in Portugal. He's just outside of Caldas de Rainha. And he's second generation. His father was also a ceramicist, and I love his stuff. I've just become such a big fan, and I was lucky enough to buy a tile from him recently. But he makes these really neat ceramic and some wood seagulls. They're like real to scale seagulls, and they are installed all along the seawall there, or the wall of the lighthouse. And he also has some other things in town. He has wall panels over by the funicular. And so after you get to see those, great pictures by the way, then you go up to the top level, and that's where you see the actual red lighthouse that's up there, and you can watch the waves.
Amazing views from up there.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's, yeah.
Even if the waves are, 1 foot, it's worth going up there.
It's worth seeing just the view.
Yeah.
And just seeing how powerful the ocean is from up there. It's an experience. And I remember when we were up there, it was hard to leave because we were all just kind of mesmerized by the surfers and the waves and how everything just kind of flowed. It's very hypnotic.
Yes. And if you haven't watched, there's on HBO Max, I guess,
or
it's
might
called
be
now.
just Max now.
Yeah, whatever it is. There is a multi-part documentary on big wave surfing, and it's called 100-Foot Wave. And it's all about Nazaré and how it got started as a big wave surfing spot, and it's really interesting.
It is. It's really cool. Highly recommend. Plus you get to see what Nazaré sort of looked like 10 years ago. It's a little bit different now. A lot of tourists have come to town.
Yes, very much so. Also, one of the things we didn't talk about was how there were a lot of the older folks down by the beach, by the praia part, were dressed in traditional traditional Nazaré skirts and tops, the women, and that was really interesting.
The older women that are dressed in these traditional outfits, most of them are out trying to sell you a room or try to get you to rent a room from them.
And there is a traditional one called the 7-colored flannel skirt that the women wear, and it's called that because it's embroidered and it has 7 colors in it. It's flowers and things like that. But we also saw some that weren't in those, but they were traditional skirts and blouses. And
yeah, with their knee socks pulled up and, their shawls over them. And they look, very traditional.
Yes, we beat that to death.
We did, didn't we? Whew. I'm going to have a great time editing this.
I think you should.
Okay, guys, we're back. And in that whole 5 seconds, or technically 5 minutes, I suppose, that we were gone, I played the Melissa Etheridge song for Beth, and she knew it, and everything is okay.
I'm so glad to hear it.
Whew, I was a little worried at first, but now everything is fine.
Okay.
We can move on with our lives.
Yes, and what we're going to do is talk about our next day trip.
Where did we go, Beth?
We went to Conimbriga Ruins.
Conimbriga Ruins.
Yes, well, you made it sound very Scottish, but yes.
Conimbriga Ruins?
Yeah.
Conimbriga?
I think it's Coin.
There's no I in there. C-O-N.
That's how, okay, whatever.
Anyway, We're doing so well with our Portuguese pronunciation,
Yes,
aren't we?
yes. So what is that, you might ask? It is one of the largest Roman settlements in Portugal.
One of the reasons that we wanted to go to the ruins is Eli and I love ancient ruins. We will walk around and try to figure out what happened and learn about ancient civilizations. And we were very happy to find that this place was only about, an hour maybe? A little bit more than an hour maybe from where we live. So it was a nice day trip to drive up there. It was warmer than we expected.
In December, no less.
In December, because we had planned to do this the last time Eli was here. It was in August, and we had planned a day to go. And then we looked at the weather and realized it was going to be like 104
yes,
out there
Fahrenheit.
And we were like, "No, we're not doing that.
Yeah,
and we'll die." And it's a good thing we didn't, because even the day in December that we went, it was only 17 Celsius. As I jump back and forth, y'all, keep up.
Try to keep up. Which is about 64, 65.
No, I think it's less than that. I swear that 20 degrees is 60. But I might be wrong. Anyway, so it was about 17, which is maybe high 50s. And it was still really warm because it's completely open. There's only one part that's sheltered. So when the sun is shining, it is very warm out there walking around. I ended up taking my jacket off, I think. I got really warm.
I did too.
But so if you decide to go on a cool day, because in August, you're going to die.
Well, maybe not die, but it will certainly be very hot.
Very hot.
There is a cafe there where you can get out of the sun. There is a museum.
Very small museum. But
yes, but you are out in the open most of the time. It's really affordable. It was only €4.50 to get in per person. We should mention when it's open in case you want to go. It's open from 10 to 6. We did not take a tour, and when we saw Pompeii, we did not take a tour. And I felt like that you could really sort of get the gist of it, and the signage was really good at Conimbriga. I didn't feel that way as much about Pompeii. When we go back there again, we will definitely take a tour. But on this one, I feel like you can do it without a tour, unless you just want every single detail.
Yeah. Make sure you get the book if you're not going to take a tour. And I think there was an app. We were going to look that up. But we had a little guidebook with us and Eli, and he was very good about telling what each thing was.
Yes. In this place, there is forum, there's aqueducts, there's homes that have incredible fountains and mosaics, and it was really amazing. And also the baths or the spas were really interesting. I have never seen a bath or spa that was that detailed, where you could really see where they had the cold water and they had the tepid water and they had the hot water, and you progress from one to the next, and how they did that. That was really interesting. Same for the aqueducts. You could really see how, once it came out of the big aqueduct, like a lot of people have seen that have traveled in Europe, you could see the system, how they dispersed it throughout the town. And that was really interesting.
Yeah, plus this place is so small that it's manageable. When you go to places like Pompeii, we spent the entire day there. It was open, it was hot, and there was so much to see and so much to try to figure out. This little village, much easier. Mm-hmm. And it was beautiful. I mean, those mosaics just out in the open.
They were gorgeous.
Did you?
Yeah, I was really surprised that all of the mosaics were not protected in some way, but they were. In fact, in the areas where it was foundations of houses and stores, shops and things, where there weren't mosaics on the floor, you could actually just walk through it. And it was, I said at one point, watch me touch a Roman stone. But it was really interesting to be so up close to it. And as I said, I think it was much more understandable. Of course, only 17% of it is excavated, so they're still working on it.
I think it's going to be a while before they finish that up.
Me too. We didn't mention that it's really from the 9th century BC, wow, to the 7th and 8th AD is when this town was built and occupied, had activity. There's also the museum, and they have, it was small but interesting, and they have a lot of the artifacts that they have found while they've been excavating the actual walls and foundations. And so there's pottery and there's implements and tools and things that were used. And so that's really interesting to see as well.
We didn't see that, though.
Well, I wasn't going to tell people that. Eli went. We were tuckered by the time, that means tired, for those of you that aren't from the South United States. We were just tired by the time we were done.
It's bigger than it looks, yeah.
Yeah, so Eli popped into the museum while we had a coffee and sat down. But you can look it up online, and we saw. Plus, Eli told us about it.
Yeah, Eli told us all about it, so it was fine.
And the cafe, by the way, is attached to the museum. It was open the entire time we were there, so I'm making an assumption that it's open
every day that the place
every
is
day
open.
that it's open. And you could get lunch there. You could just get a snack. And as I mentioned, we had a coffee. You can get water there if you need it. Make sure you take water if you can. Wear a hat if it's going to be sunny because you are out in the element. There is one place that's covered, though, and that was the House of Fountains.
That was really cool. That was the coolest part, I think.
Yeah. One of the places that is the most intact that they were able to excavate, although only part of it is excavated, but it is called the House of Fountains because literally in the middle of the area of this house, there is this huge fountain. And you can make it, the water flow, and you can see how it works by putting in, it was a
euro, I think.
A euro.
Yeah.
There's a little machine, you put in a euro and the water turns on and you can see how it worked.
Yeah. So most Roman houses, you have an entryway and then you can go through a hall, and then in the middle of the house they have basically like a courtyard, and a lot of times they'll have statues and mosaics, and sometimes there'll be a fountain out there, and this one was just a humongous fountain. Once I get the blog up, or even we might even post it online on one of our social media, but we got a video of the fountain going, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And that place was huge. That was a big house.
It was. And I understand by reading about it that they had an original wall to this town, and then later, a long time later, 200 years later or something, they built another wall, and it was a little closer in, and they actually took a little bit of that house when they built that new wall. So it used to be bigger.
Wow.
Yeah, it was definitely a very wealthy person's home.
Very wealthy person's home. But that is a really neat place to visit, especially if you're close to Coimbra. It's just right outside of Coimbra. There was probably many ways to get a guide, or they had bus tour parking. So if you're planning to go, you might want to check to make sure that it's not completely crowded that day. But, I'm glad we went. I'm glad we went to see it.
I really am too. Like I said, it was very easy to kind of get a picture by walking through about what the life was like. I really enjoyed it a lot. There were like 10,000 people that lived there at the height of its population.
It's way bigger than the village we're in. So,
yeah, so it was
a big city at that point.
Big. It was. And it's doable in half a day. You can go and spend a half a day and have lunch at the cafe or not, or a break at the cafe, and you're done. It's easy to do in about half a day.
So another one of our day trips that we took while all our guests were here was with Amy, and we went to the Tile Museum in Lisbon. Museu do Azulejo.
Yes.
I may or may not have said that right.
I think that was right.
Museu do Azulejo.
Azulejo, which is Portuguese for tiles.
But they're called azulejos because the color in most of them. When they began to make them, they painted them this beautiful blue color, all the scenes that they would paint on these tiles.
They were blue and white.
So they were blue,
and,
azul, and so that's why they were called that. But now, tiles that you see all over Portugal are many, many different colors. But here at this particular museum, which used to be a monastery, you can see tiles made all over Portugal, plus tiles that are being restored from different places. It's a really neat afternoon to spend, especially on a rainy afternoon. That'd be a great trip to take.
Yeah. Or, I mean, sunny would be great too. It actually, if it was really hot outside, that would be a cooler place to go, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, because, it's a big stone building. The Tile Museum it's housed in the former Madre de Deus, right?
Yes.
Yes, House of God, is that what it means?
Well, Mother of God is what it means.
Oh, yes,
Madre de Deus.
Which was a convent from 1509. And it became a museum in 1965. It took about 2 hours to go through.
Yes.
I would say if you want to look at every single tile, read every single plaque, do everything, I would allow more like 3.
Yes, I would too, because I did not read every single plaque. I went through and looked at the pretty tiles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's certainly doable, as you're making plans in a half a day along with a meal somewhere or something. They cover the second half of the 15th century to present day with tiles that are there. So there's quite a variety. There are some contemporary tiles, which are really interesting. And then, of course, most of them are the more ancient tiles.
But gosh, the scenes that are on these tiles are incredible.
They really are.
I mean, even the religious ones, of course, with the little babies, the cherubs and the angels. And, of course, it's the putti. And it's some sort of, usually Mary and the baby Jesus, because that's what everybody wants to paint on everything.
Yes.
It's usually Mary and the baby Jesus, or, saint or someone like that. My favorite, though, was the big one that had Alexander the Great, and he's fighting a battle in Macedonia. And I mean, there is so much going on. It's a whole wall of tiles, and there is so much going on in this one scene. And I wonder how long it took somebody to paint that.
I would think a very long time.
Yeah,
because it was very detailed.
Keep it clean, keep it restored. Mm-hmm. I mean, that had to take a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
And I think I just want some cute little plaque to hang outside of our apartment with our names on it,
Yeah, you can get custom tiles here.
Oh, and the chicken wedding. That was my favorite too. That was the actual name of the painting, was the chicken wedding. And you're looking at it, and there's like monkeys that have the coaches, and they're, making the horses go. And then there's this one coach that has a chicken inside of it. And you're assuming that's the chicken that's getting married. That was awesome.
It was great. I took some pictures of it, so we'll put it on the blog when you write about this.
Yes, chicken wedding.
Yes.
If I'm going to get something commissioned, it's definitely going to be a chicken wedding.
There's also the chapel still there from the from the convent.
Oh, that chapel is incredible.
It really was. It's called the Chapel of St. Anthony and Queen Leonor, I think.
Yep.
And they also had what is sort of becoming one of our favorite things. They had bone reliquaries.
Yes, in the choir room.
Yes.
How strange.
So there were in case you haven't heard us talk about this before, it's like a piece of sculpture. It's pottery or ceramic, and it is done in the shape of, it's the likeness of a person, for example. And then there's this little glass door where their chest should be, and a little cavity there. And then inside that, you can open it up. Well, we can, it's behind glass, but they put a bone from the actual person in there,
That is
supposedly.
just weird.
And sometimes it's just an arm showing a hand, and then in the arm there's a little glass door, and it'll be a bone from that person's arm, supposedly. So anyway, they're really interesting. One of the best things about this museum is you get to see a piece called The Great View of Lisbon, which is from 1700. And it was done before the big earthquake that destroyed almost the entirety of Lisbon, which was in 1755. And it was the only surviving record of what Lisbon looked like at that time before the earthquake. So it's very historically significant. It is also massive.
It is huge.
It's 2,247 centimeters wide. So it is very, very big. And then it's 115 inches high. And it's in a special room, and it just kind of curves around this room. And every section is just so full of detail. And it's signed really well, so it tells what each section is. And that is probably my favorite thing.
That was my favorite too, of the whole thing, because I spent more time looking at that tile than any of the other ones.
Mm-hmm. They also do restoration work there, which I think is fascinating. And so there are experts, tile restorer experts, that I'm sure I did not give them the correct title. And they have an area which you can sort of peek into, where there are crates and crates and crates of very old tiles that are waiting for them to, in a lot of cases, actually identify. So they take them out of the crate and they try to make the scene or the mosaic or whatever it was at the time, and then date it and then restore it as much as possible. And these tiles come from all over. They come from buildings when they're being renovated and they're not going to keep that tile. They come from families who have just kept them up in a attic from some old house. I mean, they come from all over. And I think I read that if they got no more tiles in and they worked at their current pace, it would take them 27 years to finish what they have sitting there now.
A lot of work.
It is. But it's really interesting, I think, you can kind of sit, if it's during the time when their work hours are, you can actually see them sitting at their little tables with their tiny little brushes and working on the tiles. So, did you enjoy the Tile Museum?
I did enjoy the Tile Museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because when you travel throughout Portugal, everywhere that you go, you're going to see these tiles on the sides of buildings. The São Bento train station is full of them. They are truly part of Portugal's culture, and to learn more about them, it's great.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's
really cool to learn more about them.
Yeah, it was the second time I have been, actually, and I enjoyed it just as much as the first time. It had been a while. The first time I went was before COVID, and I actually had forgotten quite a bit of it because, a lot's happened since then. But it was really worth going.
So, highly recommend. And there's a cafe you can have lunch at.
Yes, there is.
Everywhere we go, there's a cafe.
You can always get coffee somewhere.
Always. I love Portugal.
Yes. Okay, so I think that's it for now. We've got some other day trips to talk about in a different podcast, but I think that's it for this one.
Yeah, I think that's it for this one. In our next one, we will probably talk about Sintra and our trip to Pina Palace and the Quinta da Regaleira.
Very good.
Make sure I'm going to say that right. But that just has to be a podcast all in its own because it's amazing and huge.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in those places.
That was great. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's it.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. So, boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you would like to reach out to us or ask questions, you can find us on our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also follow us at our website, www.forus.com. That's www.forus.com. Hope to hear from you soon. Obrigada!